All right, good afternoon. This is Brenda Bartlett, Chair of the Oregon Board of Accountancy Peer Review Oversight Committee, referred to as PROC, and I call this public meeting of our committee to order at 1:04 p.m. on Tuesday, August 18th, 2026. This meeting's open to the public and is being held by Zoom, and it's being recorded. The purpose of the PROC is to provide oversight of the administration of approved peer review programs in order to provide reasonable assurance that peer reviews of Oregon licensees are conducted and reported in accordance with the minimum standards for performing and reporting on peer reviews. PROC will review and submit to the board for approval peer review programs that comply with the minimum standards for performing and reporting on peer reviews. PROC will provide oversight of approved peer review programs to the board, and PROC will comply with all other requirements as provided for in OAR 801, Division 050. In the performance of duties as a member of a committee appointed by the board, all committee members will support the mission, goals, and values of the board. Committee members will not disclose confidential information that comes to their attention during the course of carrying out their responsibilities. Requests to any committee member for copies of public information or for a public statement relating to committee or board matters will be referred to the deputy and executive director. Board and committee members are expected to attend all meetings and be prepared for the discussion by reading the agenda material prior to the meeting. Committee members are expected to participate in the individual review of applicant files as assigned, providing timely notification to the committee coordinator if a potential conflict of interest exists. Likewise, committee members must provide timely notification to the committee coordinator of any conflict of interest in any matters being discussed. Members of the committee, please remember to mute your microphones during the meeting to avoid unnecessary background noise, and do not use the chat room feature for any discussions. When you want to speak, please unmute yourself and state your name prior to speaking. Should any technical issues arrive, we'll pause the meeting until they're resolved. We'll now take roll of all participating members and guests. For any participating guests, please identify yourself at the end. So committee members, Brenda Bartlett, I am here. John Howell.
I'm here.
Carrie Ott. Pamela Parks.
I am here.
And Michelle Rich.
Here.
All right, and board staff via Zoom, Martin Pidioni. You're on mute, Martin, sorry.
Let's fix that. I'm here.
All right. Quinn Stoddard is not here, I'm seeing. Shelley Ostrom.
Present via Zoom.
And then our OSCPA peer review program representative, Darlene Bowles.
Here.
And our board liaison, Megan Hartley.
Here.
All right, thank you. Any guests or members of the public present by Zoom or at the office? Doesn't appear to be.
Nope.
So let's proceed to review and approval of the draft agenda. Anybody have anything they wanted to add to that agenda? Okay. All right, so we will adopt can I get a motion to adopt the draft agenda?
I'll move we adopt the draft agenda. John Howell.
And any second? That was Carrie Ott, just for the record. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, all right. None opposed, no abstentions, and we have adopted our draft agenda. So the first item of agenda is public comment. There's no members of the public here. And then, old business. This is an update on the document repository box that can be used by PROC to access documents provided in conjunction with committee agendas. So I did see that was set up. I don't know if anybody else did. Has anybody seen that?
I did. I saw this is Pamela Parks, and I noticed that as well.
Okay, so I saw it set up, but I don't think we got these documents in here. Um, Shelley, I didn't know if you were aware of it because I think somebody else set it up. It might have been Quinn.
I have access to Box and it slipped my mind to get him in there. He asked me if I wanted him to do it, and I think I told him I would do it, but regardless, I didn't get it done. So I will make
Okay.
sure that these make their way in there though.
Okay, great. And that way you can probably provide the link in your email to Box so we all have access to it when you send out the agenda and the supplementary materials. And if you don't mind putting these in at the end of the meeting, that would be great. That way we just kind of have that chain going of all of the old agendas if we ever need to reference back to them.
Will do.
Thank you so much. All right, new business. First off, we'll talk about committee member reports. I attended the June 26th RAB meeting. I don't have anything specific about that. It was a really quick meeting. There were some members not present for the RAB, or I can't remember the exact circumstances. And there were a couple Hawaii ones that I got put into the breakout room for. But as per usual, the discussions were robust and the action items I found to be entirely appropriate. So nothing struck me during that meeting of anything that would need to be brought to the attention of the committee. So, John, you attended the July 31st RAB.
Yeah, I did. So let's see. There were actually a number of reviews. One was a system review that passed with no FFCs, so that was strictly a consent thing. Then on the consent agenda, there were three engagement reviews that were all passes, one with no FFCs, one with one, and one with two. There were three systems reviews with pass, two with one FFC, one with two, and one with, or no, and then one with two MFCs that were not elevated, which I thought was interesting. But after the committee discussed them, I understood why. Um, there was one engagement review that had corrective actions to be completed. They had consecutive pass with deficiencies for two corrective actions, which were taking CPE and revenue recognition and then post issuance review of subsequent engagements. They requested a waiver on both because the firm was sold February 1 of 2026. So that sort of elegantly solved the problem. It is interesting, the year that you cease doing business, you still have to have a peer review if you're enrolled in the peer review program. And so, but I think in this case, there was some discussion about the firm that acquired them and how that firm had pass ratings on their peer review, and so they assumed that the new firm would take care of the corrective actions with any personnel and any engagements that carried over. So not really a huge concern. And then they wasn't a lot else at the meeting. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. And then the next meetings were announced, but they're on our agenda, so I won't go into that.
Thank you very much. All right. So we do have the upcoming meetings on the agenda. They're already assigned. They're not showing up on your copy of the agenda, but I am assigned to the September 16th PRB. And then Michelle is going to attend the September 18th RAB. And Pamela is going to attend the October 23rd RAB. And I think that brings us up to our November meeting. And I apologize. I don't know if there a November RAB meeting, Darlene? Was that one that you don't do?
No, we have one. I can check the date for you. Hold on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it would actually be great to get that one assigned because it'll be too short notice
Yeah.
if we wait until the November proc. Thanks for catching that, Brenda.
Oh, wish I would have caught it before. I could have put it on there.
November RAB meeting is November 20th at 9 a.m. Friday, December 18th is also at 9 a.m. is the December RAB meeting.
Okay. So any takers on either one of those meetings for November and December, just to get us through to our next January proc?
This is Michelle. I can do the December meeting, December 18th.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sorry, did you say November or December?
December.
December. That was December for Michelle.
Yep. Any takers on the November by any chance?
What was the date on that again?
November 20th?
I can take November 20th. This is Pamela Parks. I can do October and November if no one's available.
Okay. I was just trying to check my calendar for November. That's
I think I can do November.
Sorry?
This is Carrie. I think I can do November.
Oh, okay. Let's do that. That way Pamela doesn't have to do 2 months in a row, if you don't mind. All right. So we have Carrie and Michelle. Thank you. All right. Okay. So the next discussion we needed to have was prop committee member recruitment. Both John and I, our third and final term expires October 28th. And Martin, what can I share on that?
So the updates that I have is it while we are I've partnered with a new board member, newish board member, Tanya Moffat, to help us with recruitments for Brock and BOAC, and those are the two top priorities right now, and that is taking a little bit longer than anticipated. But what I have is I have agreements from you, Brenda, Carrie, and Pam to get shorter term extensions done through January to give us a little bit more time to kind of finish that process and onboard. So
through the January meeting for all three of us, that's okay. I think Martin might have frozen, but that's what I'd heard. That's what I heard. Wait, though, yeah, Pamela's, oh, okay.
busily working behind the
There you are.
scenes to get stuff going for Proc and for BOAC. Did my internet connection just cut off?
I think it did. I wasn't sure if it was me or you, but I think it was you.
Oh, great.
So yeah,
Awesome.
I just want to make sure that I've got this all kind of, so I'm sorry, you might have to repeat yourself for the record and for me. Just want to make sure I've got all of this. Because I think we had Carrie and Pamela's first term expired on 3/29/26.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
It means that my chair is retroactively extending.
Oh, good. Okay. And so what does that go through? 3/29/27?
Basically, yes. It really effectively means, though, because of the way our committee schedules work, that it's the last meeting that we would have coverage through is January.
Okay.
Because we don't normally run procs, during, even though it's tax season, we don't run procs in tax season.
Okay. All right. So we're all extended through January. And then
Yes,
Michelle doesn't expire until August.
except for John. I think
Right.
John's been pretty clear
Yeah,
that
just the three names that you gave.
he's ready.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we should then hopefully have perhaps an update in November, but we are covered through our January meeting at this time.
Yep.
Okay. Great. And so one of the things that and we probably do need to talk about transitioning the chair position. How does that work, and what kind of discussions do we need to have around that, Martin?
Well, the very short answer is that there is a committee vote on who wants to be the chair, right? And then also a committee vote on who wants to be vice chair. And so we need to get that done absolutely no later than the January meeting when we have
January. Okay.
the latest set of transitions occur. We don't have to do it at the November meeting yet, but that is an option if you're ready for that already.
In January. So let's make sure that goes on the agenda. And
Yep.
do you anticipate we'll have any potential members that might, maybe in November that might come and visit, or
Oh yeah.
remember how that works?
That's the whole idea is that
Okay,
because
good.
otherwise there is no transition,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise it
Okay.
becomes one meeting transitions are not the very best. So I'm
Right.
very much pushing for trying to have our newbies with us as much as possible and I mean that lovingly when I say newbies, in November already, so that ideally we would have two meetings worth of an overlap before they start feeling all lonely and by themselves.
All right. Okay. Anybody have any questions, comments, things that we need to follow up on that agenda item?
Brenda, I'm just curious, maybe you can tell us a little bit like what you do behind the scenes in your time commitment, just so as people are thinking about if they want to be chair or not, what that time commitment really involves.
Yeah, it's not a terrible time commitment, to be honest. The way I typically do this is right after our meeting, I try to set the draft agenda based on what we've talked about. So I'm sitting here taking notes. And then maybe we have a 2 hour meeting, although that's few and far between. And then I spend another 30 to 60 minutes because I will forget within a week, right? So I try to draft that agenda then. And we have then I think Shelly's good about reaching out to me a couple weeks before and asking for that draft agenda. She reaches out to Darlene and asks about any non-consecutive non-pass or fails so that we can get those on the agenda with the relevant information. It's been in the back of my head that we need to get that a little faster before the week or two. It's still kind of my hope and goal that we get that dialed in because that gives members a little bit more time to go through them when we actually do have a consecutive non-pass to talk about. So it's really hard if you get it a week before, so the goal would be to do 2 weeks before that. So I've been trying to remember to do that on my calendar and failing so far, but so a couple weeks before, just making sure that I have my ducks in a row of, do we have any consecutive non-pass? And that's really heavy lifted by Darlene and Shelley helping me with that. So then we do that annual report, and traditionally I've been doing the annual report. So what I would recommend to the next chair is that they divide that work up a little bit, but it's really not a big lift. I would say, because we already have it built and we just kind of update based on things and finding that information, I would say that only takes maybe 3 or 4 hours at the most, just over a long period of time. It's not a heavy lift at all. And then the biennial review that we're going to talk about next, I have no idea, but I have full intention of spreading that work out. So I would say it's not a huge time commitment, honestly. Now that we've got everything dialed in, we have the new member handbook. I did do that. That was kind of outside, but we only have to maintain that. I think I would say maybe an extra hour a quarter, maybe 2 extra hours a quarter, and then that 3 or 4 hours a year for the, annual report. So it's not a huge time commitment now that we have everything dialed in. So Any other questions on that? Yeah, it was a big time commitment while we were getting everything set up. But now that we've got it set up, it really isn't that bad. So I promise. Just trying to sell it. So, okay. All right. So with that, I did want to move into the biennial program review discussion. So am I able to share in this environment, or should everybody just read this themselves, Martin? I don't know. Is it okay to share my
Oh,
screen?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
this is all public.
Okay. Let me, I don't, oh, let me see if I can. I think I can share. Yeah, I can. Okay. I'm hoping what you're seeing is this core elements of a biennial program review.
Yep.
All right, so this is something I think it came with the agenda. I even think we talked a little bit about it last time we met. This is something that we're required to do every 2 years. And we haven't really discussed timing because I think it just got on our radar maybe, 6, 9 months ago or so. And so we do want to kind of build this into our cadence, just like our annual report is built into the cadence. So we'll work on that, but right now we just need to get the work done. And so what I'm trying to do is kind of shoot for getting this done before January and the same kind of timing as our annual report, because it does culminate, as you can see here, in a communication to the board. So a separate communication. So what I'd like to do, if possible, is there's some very distinct areas, and I'd like to just assign one of them to each of us on the committee, and then I'm happy to pull it all together and report and get that template out. But the first is really just this governance and independence review. And so we're looking at the structure and membership of the peer review program and the oversight bodies, looking at these 3 bullet items and just kind of coming up with a narrative of what we looked at and what that looks like. And I suspect that we may need some help from you, Darlene, on this. If you're able and willing to do that, I'm not really sure because I think a lot of this information is about the program, the OSCPA program. And so we may need to just do a little fact finding and get some help from you on all of these. I've been kind of looking. And then the second one is really just we're looking at how the program is run.
Brenda, this is Pamela Parks. I'll take number 1.
Okay. And I will write your name there.
Great.
Oops. Okay, so the other one is this evaluation of the program administration. This again, I think a lot of this comes from our RAB observation, honestly, as we're reporting out so somebody who has actually attended a RAB, I think that it is probably one of us should be involved in this. I think we all have, but that would be my recommendation because, talking about whether the reviews are administered in accordance with AICPA peer review standards, I think we may need a little bit of help from Darlene on that as to what we should look at or how we should look at that. But a lot of times when we've seen the report acceptance, that third bullet, a lot of that is what we've observed in RAB. The second bullet, I suppose, I don't know, we're probably going to need a little bit of help from Darlene on that as well. But I think the other piece that we had talked about last time we met is that we should first, before we bug Darlene, leverage that AICPA report because I think the AICPA report is going to speak to a lot of these things. So I guess I should ask Darlene, did that report the AICPA did get issued officially yet? Because I don't think it had last time.
I believe so, but I'm not 100% certain because that file is in my office.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe what
But
I'll
I
do
don't think
after
it
this
doesn't
is
need to, it doesn't need to be, I mean, we can still use it. It's
okay,
the
good.
reason why we
Yeah.
have to
Because
stop
I
what we're
think what
doing.
I'd like to do as we're assigning these out to each other, but I would like to, after this meeting, send that report out to everybody because you really can, you may find that you're looking at these bullets and they're saying, oh, the AICPA already monitored this. And that was sort of what we talked about last time, is that everything that the AICPA does, we feel like we can rely on that for the biennial program review. So, but if we're not understanding something or we don't feel like it's addressed, it's something in this kind of document that we've said we're going to look at, we may need to leverage some help from Darlene. But I'm hopeful and expecting that a lot of this is covered by the AICPA report. So what we would need to do in that case is if I'm working on number 2, I'd be looking for things that address that and then referencing that, that's been monitored by the AICPA. That was my feeling on approach. Not reinventing the wheel. In other words, we don't want to do that. So is anybody interested in taking on number 2? Okay.
This is Michelle. I can do number 2.
Okay, sounds good. All right, and so then number 3 is report acceptance and consistency. This really has to do a lot with the RAB and our observations. So I know the AICPA is going to address it because they go to the RAB meetings too, but we can use a lot of what we've personally learned at RAB meetings to address this. So not a lot I need to say about this. Does anybody want to, and my hope is that we'll get these done by November. So by our November meeting is have a draft that we can pull together from everybody. So you got about 3 months. So anybody interested in just taking on kind of summarizing this part that we could pull into
Carrie,
our.
I will.
Sorry,
I will. This is Carrie.
Carrie. Okay. All right. And then number 4, again, I'm hoping this is in the AICPA report, but might need to ask Darlene for some help. And this is really, we're not reperforming reviews, but what we're looking at is we're seeing how are the reviewers selected, how are they trained, how are they approved, have there been performance issues identified and addressed. And I know in one of the RAB meetings I attended, I believe that was brought up. So I know that's going on. I just don't know the actual methodology or criteria or even the cadence of that. And then whether oversight and observations of reviewers performed and documented, assuming there's information in the AICPA report on that as well. So anybody interested in this?
This is Michelle. I can do that and combine that with number 2.
Okay, you
Thank you.
got it. Okay. And then this 5th one, I'm happy to take on if nobody else wants to take it on. I think, Darlene, will you correct me if I'm wrong? Does the AICPA report talk about this or is it the OSCPA report? Because I think I've seen metrics like this before when I've been pulling together the annual report.
We do an annual report every year.
Okay.
That gives all of that.
So we can really probably refer to that. It was my guess because I knew I'd seen it somewhere. And so I'm happy to do that because I need to do it for the annual report anyway. And then like I said, I'll take on doing the kind of just pulling it together and creating a template. But what is, Darlene, if you could help me, when is the most recent OSCPA report?
We only do them every year, and it's either dated February or March of last year.
So 2025.
2026.
Oh, 2026.
No, the report date is 2026, but it's for the 2025 year.
Got it. Okay. Okay, perfect. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so again, like I said, my hope is that we, just spend some time on this, just drafting. Um, we will get that AICPA report out to you as soon as I can get my hands on it and get it to Shelley, so Shelley can send it out. And Martin, that's okay, right? She can disseminate. Perfect. So she'll disseminate that to all the members, and we can use that. And I suspect that 80 to 90% of what we need is going to be in that document. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. I did a little bit of research on this prior to the last meeting, and it sounded pretty standard that most procs are heavily reliant on AICPA monitoring, and that's okay. We just need to, it's really for us to give a report to the board about, about these things, and it's biennial. And so if the CPA is already doing it, and they're doing it very well, I'm sure, because they know what they're doing, we really just want to report that out to the board. So hoping to have that, let's say, by the next meeting. And then by January, should have just like an overall draft report that we can, approve. At the same time, we approve the annual report and get those out to the board. That timing sound okay, Martin?
It sounds amazing. I appreciate a lot of folks stepping up, taking on different pieces. And generally, whenever you, Brenda, say that something can be done by Shelley, A, I have a conflict of interest, and B, I offer low levels of resistance.
Okay, great.
So
All right.
Brenda, this is Pamela Parks. I just want to make sure, I just want to repeat so that basically I don't mess things up. So, okay, in our shared box, we're just going to start a draft. So I'll do section number 1 and we all put our sections like on there. So we have one collective document due by the November meeting. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm sorry, I didn't even say let's put it all in box. But yeah, so I think what would be great is just to put it in a box, which thank you for reminding me that we have box. Put it in a box in your own file is fine. And then we'll just combine it into one template. I'm gonna go searching out there to find a report. That's what I did for our annual report. I heavily used California's. So, I'm gonna try to find some kind of template out there that we can use, and then I'll just feed all of your information. So you can put yours in separate files, and I would just label them as, one, governance and independence reviews, right? And so then we can kind of get those in that way.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could just make one small reminder to the committee just to keep us on the right side of public meetings law. When we use Box this way, it's really, really important that we just use it for that repository of documents piece as opposed to documents that contain messages from one person to another, so that we don't use Box essentially almost like as a communication tool, because then we get in trouble. So it's okay as a repository, as we discussed, but please don't go beyond.
Yep. And so kind of the way this would be to make sure, just to clarify, is that we want to get that in there by November. We will put that on the meeting agenda to talk about those submissions and talk about anything that, any questions that came up for you all when you're doing these separate sections. And then once we've had our November meeting, we can assimilate that into a draft report that we'll all look at again in January. So that should work, right, Martin?
That works perfect. And then we can get that over to what will either be a late January or early February board meeting.
Okay. All right, that'll be the goal. Now, our last agenda item is discussion of non-consecutive, non-pass firms. It's my understanding there was one, but they left the program. So I don't see any reason. They're kind of out of our purview at this point once they've left the peer review program. And Darlene, did that happen? And maybe I'm not supposed to ask this question, just correct me if I'm wrong, but is that the one that John discussed at the July? Is because he mentioned a consecutive non-pass? Okay, so
Yes,
that's the same
same firm.
one. So we're not missing one.
That was two consecutive pass with deficiencies, but those were
Yeah.
both passes. So those were just somebody that needed to do corrective actions. They weren't not, that wasn't a consecutive
Oh, I thought
non-pass
it was consecutive
in the
non-pass. Okay.
traditional sense. Yeah, no, sorry. I'm sorry if that wasn't clear.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah, I know Darlene had told me about a one,
Mm.
and we haven't been looking at those if they've just chosen to leave the program. So
Yeah, that was a different firm, I believe, and I think it was the same thing that they basically just quit doing business. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
Madam Chair, while we're
yes.
talking about leaving the program, even though it's not about non-pass, if I could have permission to ask Darlene a question. Darlene, please tell me if you don't know the answer, if we can maybe deal with it at the next proc. But I'm really curious really curious in the context of all the kind of the uptick in private equity ownerships. Did we have and kind of the move by AICPA to kind of shift peer reviews away from administrative entities back to the National Peer Review Program for those that are um, in APS PE structures? Did we have a lot of departures in Oregon
I'm,
due to that change?
we
Is that
had, I
something
can
on
think
your
of
radar?
two off the top of my head. I don't think
There were
it's a
two.
lot, but there are
Yeah.
some.
Okay.
I don't know the number off the top of my head of how many have moved, and I just know of two firms that I'm thinking of in my head that have now become, part of the PE structure.
Okay.
All right. Well, does anybody have any comments, questions, or anything we want to include on the next meeting agenda?
I was just going to make my retirement comment since this is my last meeting here. I just wanted to say how much I appreciated working with all of you and appreciated your diligence in working for the proc. I know when Brenda and I started, things were not run the way that they are now, and I feel really good about where we are. I think that Martin and Brenda, who've been with me the whole time, deserve a lot of credit for that. In terms of us doing the things, in Martin's comments about Box, I just wanted to enlarge. I had the misfortune of serving on a small special district that was the water district in my old neighborhood that I lived in. And, these are the kinds of things that you do as a citizen volunteer. And I just showed up fat, dumb, and happy, to these meetings and kind of went with the flow. And they had an improperly documented closed executive session. And, one of the neighbors, they had this neighbor that was a guy in the neighborhood that was just always a fly in the ointment. And he knew something about special districts. And he filed a complaint with the State Ethics Commission. We all had to go in for the hearing. So it's very serious what Martin's talking about in terms of, the public meeting law in Oregon and what can happen to you. And it was very embarrassing, to be drug into that. And I basically told the State Ethics Commission the same thing I told you, as I said, had I any idea that this was something that was going to happen to me just because I wasn't paying attention, I never would have served on this stupid water board. It's like being in a really bad HOA meeting where you have
Mm.
psychotic neighbors. And I said, I'm just not, I said it was a completely thankless task. And the idea then I'd be drugging here and my name would be put in the permanent record for violating, state public meeting law is distressing to me, as a CPA. So Martin's very correct in cautioning people and letting people know it's serious business. You get somebody unfriendly that's on your back, and it's very, very easy to end up in front of the state ethics board without any evil intent or ever doing anything wrong. It's very, very evil. So I wanted to share my experience if I hadn't shared that before, and I hope that everybody would learn by it and really listen, because Martin's very well schooled in this and very concerned about it and very diligent, and really, really need to listen to him and be careful. Watch yourselves. You're doing a great job. public service is wonderful, and I thank each and every one of you for your service, but, don't be punished for your good deeds. So there's no reason to be punished. Anyway, thank you all very much. I appreciate, like I say, my time serving with you. I'm looking forward to my retirement. I have my accessibility thing running here so I can see what people say because I can barely hear anymore. So, it's time. It's very much time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
John.
being on the board. We appreciate it. And yeah, enjoy retirement.
Thank you,
Feel a
John.
little jealous today about that, but yeah.
Yeah, way to go, John. And Brenda, is a follow-up. I did want to say that I got into the proc box. We have a file on RAB observation from June 26th, and we do have the proc meeting materials in there. So Quinn must have done it because I know I didn't.
Okay,
So it's all
great.
good.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, if we have nothing else, I am going to adjourn this meeting of the PROC at 1:44 p.m. on August 18th, 2026. And our next meeting is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026. Thank you,
Awesome.
everybody.